DeFi is the next stage of finance, much in the way that we went from, representing value with bartering to, representing value with gold and silver to representing value with, pieces of paper. Crypto is the next logical progression.
Hi everyone, it's Jordan from the NEWFORUM team. On today's episode, Rob Montgomery, the founder of Revest Finance, is our guest to simplify DeFi and discuss Revest Finance vision and value proposal. So if you're interested in DeFi, you're in the right place. So Rob, welcome on NEWFORUM.
Oh, thank you, Jordan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Rob, how did you discover Web3 and what has kept you in the space up to this day?
So I first became involved in crypto back in 2013. So I have it here. This guy. That is in fact a Bitcoin.
That's a nice guy.
No, funny story. This one has no value before anyone thinks of breaking into my house and trying to steal it. But I got involved in Bitcoin very early on. I found out about it from all things from a Minecraft server that I was playing on at the time. I was in high school. And some people were talking about this new thing called Bitcoin. I was like, oh, what's that? Ended up buying two, lost one to Mt. Gox, spent the other on a fake ID. So I've been in crypto for a little while. How did I get involved in development? I played around for a while. I did mining back in 2017. I nearly set my entire apartment on fire when my graphics card caught fire. It turns out, yes, you can in fact set graphics cards on fire from mining.
So be careful out there for those
used to it. 2020, I asked my wife to marry me, and she said yes. And it was January of 21. I was not terribly happy with my job. I was doing a graduate research position at Georgia Tech, working on my doctorate, researching memristors nanothermal effects. And it's an interesting sounding field, but in practice, it's a lot of simulations and it's not at all that fun for me, at least. I mean, some people love it, don't get me wrong. But for me, it didn't have a lot of passion behind it. And I realized, I'm getting married. I don't like my job and I have no money. And I was like, well, I've been doing programming forever, just as a hobby. I've been doing crypto forever as a hobby. This bull market looks like it's kicking off. Let's get involved again. I started a validator. That went well. And then I decided to get in on the NFT action. I created an interactive NFT. It's one of the first ones, actually, outside of art blocks, of course. And that went pretty well. Then the idea for Revest came to me one day and off I went.
So really it's like from Minecraft to Bitcoin to kind of DeFi, right?
Yeah. I mean, hey, Minecraft's also where I got my start in programming, so go figure.
So there you go for all those out there, or the parents, that are hesitating. It's good to let everyone try Minecraft or any games that can.
Yeah, it all goes back to Minecraft.
There you go. I mean, obviously we mentioned DeFi. I think one of the most important, and obviously it can be a simple or very complicated question, is why DeFi? Like for you, like briefly, why do you think DeFi is an alternative to traditional finance? Or what is so different or interesting as kind of an experiment?
To me, DeFi is the next stage of finance, much in the way that we went from, representing value with bartering to, representing value with gold and silver to representing value with, pieces of paper. Crypto is the next logical progression. And for me, at least, the way that we structure DeFi is far more accessible. There's lower barriers to entry for someone in a developing country without a lot of access to the resources we have here in the States. They can be just as successful, wealthy, and prolific in this space as myself. It's far more equal opportunity than traditional Wall Street, where you need to have gone to one of the Ivy Leagues and know people to really get much of a foot in the door. And I value that. I think that's a far more fair and likely successful system, because you have all those different ideas and all these different people able to get involved now.
So you mentioned like equal opportunities. So what about kind of like equal losses, right? Because obviously we'll dive into that, right? But
Yeah.
when we talk about DeFi, there's so many opportunities, but there's of course a lot of losses, so or dangers to avoid. When it comes to the project that you launched last year, Revest Finance, could you tell us a bit more about what is the vision of Revest Finance? What were you trying to accomplish? Without necessarily going into the details, because in the next questions we'll dive into it.
Yeah, so with Revest, we were trying to build out a system that would allow you to transfer assets in NFT-based vaults. The idea being that most financial instruments in traditional finance aren't fungible tokens, like most crypto tokens are fungible. Most financial assets are actually non-fungible. And it seemed a little ridiculous to us that most of crypto, most of DeFi was being built on fungible tokens when things like debt, vesting, any sort of derivative structure is inherently, going to be non-fungible. And especially with things that require locks, which most real financial assets do, you're not going to be able to represent those with normal ERC20 tokens. And an ERC20, for those of you who don't know, that's something like Chainlink or something like Uniswap token or something like my own token, the Revest token. Those are all, they're all interchangeable. You can't tell them apart from one another.
So that's a very good way to introduce Revest Finance. And so you mentioned obviously the locks. So with Revest Finance, correct me if I'm wrong, but the user has access to mainly three composable lock types. So you have the time lock, the value lock, and the address lock. Can you explain like what they are and what are the differences?
Yeah, so the idea was that you lock value behind these locks, and because that value is locked, we can do things with it, things that generate economic value for you. Or we just store the assets safely away from people who aren't supposed to have access to them yet, but still want to be able to transfer the future rights to access them. And the first of those was the time lock, and a time lock, it's just a lock that, is set for a duration. So maybe it unlocks in a year, maybe it unlocks in two, maybe it unlocks in 2 days. Who knows? It's up to whoever creates it. You have the value lock. The value lock was set up to unlock based on oracles. So if the price of an asset changes, an oracle, by the way, is just a thing that tells you what the price of something is. That's a simplification, but that's all you need to really understand about them. So that would say, okay, the price of this asset, Bitcoin, has gone above $20,000. Go ahead and unlock the assets. And then we have the address lock. And an address lock is a smart contract driven lock. So an address lock can be anything. An address can be, okay, well, it turns out that, the Braves have won the World Series, and it's time to go ahead and trigger the assets that were stored in here to unlock and go to this one person instead of this other person, because maybe somebody won a bet.
So you can set any condition then?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so you can make it fun in a way.
Oh yeah, it opens up a lot of possibilities.
So how did you go from like the main, I would say, product of Revest Finance with the vaults to the Resonate app? So for the audience, Revest Finance announced a couple of weeks ago the launch of the Resonate app. So first of all, congratulations on the launch. And can you explain a bit more the value proposal of Resonate, like compared to what you just said before, and what are like the main differences and what is new?
Yeah, absolutely. So Resonate is I wouldn't say totally different offering. The easiest analogy we like to use is that Revest protocol is the engine of the whole system. It's the financial NFT, because that's what they are. They are NFTs that are, for financial purposes. It powers that. It offers the system to build financial NFTs, things that, have these web apps built into the NFTs graphical interface. So when you look at the NFT, it's not a PNG, it's a web app, and it allows you to interact with the position. That's what the Revest protocol does. It has those locks and it allows you to interact with these financial NFTs. Okay, so Resonate, it is to Revest what a video game is to a video game engine. That's the analogy. I think is that a simile? I can't remember the difference.
No, okay, that's a pretty cool analogy. I mean, whenever it comes to video games, it's always
Oh yeah, no, it's
so then going back to your analogy, then how in terms of functioning, like how exactly does Resonate like function? Like, is there any fees? If a new user wanted to start using Resonate, what would be the different steps?
So what Resonate does is it allows you to enter yield farming positions and get paid a guaranteed rate. That's Resonate's use. And the idea is that a lot of these yield farms you see out there, they'll tell you, yeah, you can make 25% over a year. And you'll see that and think, wow, 25%? I'm going to deposit my tokens. I'm going to come back and I have 25% more.
Yeah, it sounds
But
pretty cool.
a bunch of other people see that and they think, oh, 25%, I'm gonna deposit my tokens. And as more and more tokens go in there, the rates get diluted. And unless you're checking those rates on a daily basis and a really active participant, you'll end up losing money most of the time on those systems. So what Resonate does is it allows you to get paid out up front, a guaranteed amount for providing, a certain amount of liquidity to that system. Staking tokens, I should say.
So without going too much on the technical details, like how did you and the team kind of come up with this concept, and how does it work like on the technical level?
So basically on the technical level, you just bring your tokens to the system and you say, hey, there's a pool that'll offer me, 35% for a 4-month lockup. And so you take those tokens, like let's say they're liquidity tokens. And for those of you who don't know what liquidity tokens are, it's what allows a decentralized exchange to work, is you contribute tokens in equal amounts. So I might contribute Ethereum and I might contribute, say, CrowdSwap tokens into a liquidity pool on, say, QuickSwap. And that would mean that, okay, I've got those tokens in each one. Cool, I'm in a good place. I bring those tokens to Resonate and CrowdSwap themselves, because they want me to provide that liquidity so people can trade their token. They say, all right, cool, thanks for providing liquidity. Here are, 35 tokens per every 100 tokens you lock up for 4 months. And I take that upfront payment, and I'm really happy I got that upfront payment because now I know that I got a guaranteed return. I don't have to wonder what's going to happen. I don't have to check it for the next 4 months. And I just lock up my tokens and I get an NFT. And that NFT, it's just the rights to claim those tokens in 4 months. It's a time lock. So I can go sit on my ass and do absolutely nothing for the next 4 months, and I will still get the same return. I don't have to be super active. I don't have to be concerned about what's going on in the wider crypto world or keeping an eye on things. I just got paid. That's it.
Yeah, no, I love the kind of simple approach that you have. How do you educate your community or new users? How do you make it as simple as you just explained for users that don't necessarily have the opportunity to speak with you? So,
Yep.
not only for you, but I think in general, it is when it comes to DeFi, unless you're already in it and very passionate, it can be a bit overwhelming, maybe not confusing, but overwhelming. So what is your process with your community and new users?
Ongoing UI research, ongoing UX research. We try to talk to people. We have a group of educators. I'm not going to call them marketers, but they're just educators. That's the way we're trying to frame it.
All right. Fair.
I don't like paying for shilling. What I do like is paying people to go out and help explain stuff, because there's not a lot of that in this space. So we teach those guys, hey, here's how the system works. Here's how you can help teach other people how it works. And we give them infographics, we give them videos, we basically arm our community with a large series of tools, and then we send them out to the world, especially to our partner communities, people like CrowdSwap, people like Reaper, people like Velodrome, and we just help teach those communities, hey, here is this new tool, here's how it works, here's how you can use it. We're currently commissioning some animations to help explain, yeah, here's how you use it if you're on the website already and are confused by what you're looking at. Here's what to click. So that is probably the single biggest challenge that we have run into as an entity, is how do we explain this to people? And that's how we're doing it.
Have you like found like examples like of other DeFi projects where obviously the Web3 space can kind of work as an echo chamber, and there's a lot of really good or bad examples out there. But when it comes to DeFi, like, is there a couple projects that you've been obviously maybe inspired by, which is totally fine, and that you think I like their approach, not necessarily in terms of product, but either community or product? Like, do you want to name a few Not just
Yeah.
name them, but explain why you think they're adding value in a specific way.
All right. Well, he's probably never going to see it, so I can actually compliment him. Ivan GBI and the Gearbox team. Those guys do a good job marketing. They are marketing something that's very complicated and honestly a bit dangerous, which is leverage. Leverage is,
That is
yeah,
dangerous.
it's dangerous. It can cause a lot of problems and make you lose a lot of money. So their ability to explain it has to be extremely on point to try to prevent their community members from losing money. They've done fantastic. Their approach of almost a guerrilla style marketing campaign through the Lobster DAO group that Ivan owns, I admire it. Everyone in there is talking about the system. There's been a lot of buzz and excitement around it, and they just had a fantastic launch. And from what I've seen, people aren't losing their money quite yet. So
Well, or at least they're understanding that it's their responsibility. When you leverage, obviously,
yes,
it's your responsibility.
yeah, exactly. Do this at your own risk.
So going back to Resonate.
Vila,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you want to
I
add?
would also say Velodrome. Velodrome has done a really good job at explaining their concepts to their community. Those guys, they're very good communicators. We're partnered with them, so of course I'm going to sing their praises. But they took the solidly concept that was pretty nebulous that Andre came up with back in March that crashed and burned so spectacularly, and they've actually built a working system out of it. Not only that, but they've fixed the problems and they've managed to explain the whole thing to their community.
Going back to what you said earlier, obviously educating is very important, and it's also like creating a narrative that also the overall Web3 audience and even outside can understand, because most people are still sometimes a bit confused when it comes to DeFi. So going back a bit to like the main question of actually why DeFi, when you look at DeFi in the past or in your Minecraft days, at the present and potentially the coming years, it's not an easy question, but how do you kind of gauge the past, the present, and the future when it comes to DeFi? Like how we've evolved, like in the last 3 years when it comes to DeFi, and where do you think we can be when you look at the overall landscape of DeFi, of the different players and Revest Finance and Resonate, and also the overall adoption? How do you view this? So not an easy question, but go for it.
This is a tough one. DeFi started out as a pretty singular group, right? You had the DeFi summer and the DeFi OGs, and you get retail start to trickle in. You get degens almost trickling up.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you have all these shit coins, you have these really dumb ideas making a ton of money, and simultaneously you have almost an outgrowth of the original ideas where it starts to diverge. You've got people going off and doing some really crazy big brain stuff that nobody understands and very few people use. You've got people doing even more crazy big brain stuff that honestly may not even make it because it's too far out. Yeah, if using your product requires learning, a near graduate level course in math, it's not going to work. So meanwhile, you've got these like much smaller projects or much simpler projects kind of staying on the main line, but also still having a bit of outgrowth toward that crazier side. The degen stuff has kind of fragmented off in one direction. The crazier stuff is going off in a different direction. And you're seeing that crazier stuff over here get a lot more institutional focus, and the more normal degen stuff just kind of puttering around doing its thing. So to me, where do I see things breaking? I see the really, really, really crazy big brain stuff ending up, entangled with institutions. Hedge funds are here. Not a lot of people realize that, but they are here. I know that because I'm in contact with a few. Yeah, no, they've shown up. The big boys are moving in. They're loving the bear. They're trickling themselves into the industry, and they're getting engaged with some of the best DeFi talent out there and asking them to come build stuff in their CeFi world. But also DeFi world, it's kind of a weird hybrid place for some of those guys.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyways, I see like one sector becoming more institutionalized and having a lot of institutional money flow through it because it's doing such crazy ahead of its time next gen ideas that most of retail can't understand. And then I also see some of that stuff being basically hacked off and brought back to retail world and repackaged with better UI UX. To me, I see good UI UX being the winner. That's what's going to actually make this thing work.
Do you
is when
think
we can onboard normal people and explain all these ideas to them without them having to, learn the jargon. Because most of these ideas are easy, they're simple. We just lose ourselves in buzzwords so much of the time.
But do you think then that the big boys are the ones who are actually going to be able, with their capital and their marketing, to explain to the average user? Or do you think that the players currently in Web3 that still have capital are in a good position to say to the traditional big players, like, it's our time, or at least give us our time, then you can come in?
I honestly see it being an intermediary system. Like I don't think that we're gonna no one who's currently in this industry and has a good foothold in it is gonna get edged out by, hedge funds suddenly showing up.
Yeah, definitely.
That's not something that's so easy to happen. What's more likely is that, you have the people who've been established acting as a filtering layer for all that money, because that money has to flow through somehow and end up with people who know what they're doing in DeFi. And a lot of the people in that money necessarily don't have that good of an understanding of the landscape, so they need guides. It's onboarding. That's what it is. And those who figure out how to capture that money and make friends with it, they'll do quite well.
So then going back to Resonate and Revest Finance, regarding what you actually also just said, what is the roadmap, for end of 2022 and going into 2023? Like, where do you want to be positioned in the giant landscape that is DeFi?
So to me, we will always have a place for retail. I don't think that'll change. What I've realized is that we've basically bifurcated our demographics. We've split them. On the one hand, we have more casual retail. We have people who just don't want to have to think too much about yield farming, don't want to have to monitor on a daily basis, understand that getting money up front is actually an economically beneficial thing. And those people, that's a very easy demographic to cater to. That's a very easy one to help out, especially when you're talking about new folks who don't want to have to learn the weird ins and outs of this world. Just lock up your tokens and Resonate, you'll get paid. That's it. No complexities, no weirdness, no unnecessary jargon or jumping through hoops. One and done, easy. Okay, so as more of those traditional investors who are more casual come into the space, I think we're going to have a very good market segment with them. On the other hand, some of the more interesting implications of our tech apply to two groups. One is DAOs and protocols with whom we already have a very strong relationship. We've launched with, I believe, 26, 27 launch partners, and we plan to continue working with those guys for a long time to come.
So in which ways are you working with them, kind of briefly, like these DAOs, for example?
Typically, they're deploying capital on the other side of the equation. They're the ones who are paying out up front. And they're doing that to either, enhance their own treasury situation, or they're doing that to incentivize liquidity into their systems under a new form of liquidity incentivization. Typically, they, do that whole yield farming song and dance, but we can help them build a better system that better aligns their interests with the interests of their yield farmers. It's a lot healthier of an ecosystem we've built. But the third party that we want to, be involved with is these big capital players, because when you start using our system and the ability to get capital up front on an asset in a novel way, you can create some very interesting structured products. And I will not get too in the weeds on that because I do not want to lose people in financial jargon. But the long and short is that you can build products that make money no matter what.
So, I mean, as we approach the end of this episode, and obviously I invite anyone in the audience, there's a lot of documentation, not only on the website of Revest Finance, but also even new Medium articles regarding Resonate. That will be in the description. Do you have, Rob, any final thoughts or inspirations lately, something you've read, or just general thoughts about not only DeFi, but just the whole space in general, from like gaming, NFTs, creator economy? Is there like one last topic very briefly that you want to touch upon, or that you think is really cool outside of DeFi, or you're just all in DeFi?
I live, eat, sleep, and breathe my job. My wife is very patient with me. Big shout out to her. She basically is the other half of this business. So mostly when I think about DeFi. I guess if anyone listening to this is interested in a liquidity mining solution, wants a staking system, come to me. Reach out to someone on my team, we'll hook you up. We can give you stuff that's a lot more friendly to your token holders and you, than existing solutions can. And yeah, I think that's probably the thought I'd close on.
That's great. Well, I mean, thank you so much, Rob, for being a part of today's forum. Yeah, so as I said, the Revest Finance links will be in the descriptions. As for us, if you want to get more involved in our community, yeah, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. So on Twitter, it's NEWFORUM_NCO. Take a moment. Don't forget to share, like, or subscribe to our channel. And yeah, like can go a long way. Have a great day and check out Revest Finance for more information.
Take care.